Natalie looked at herself in the mirror. An elegant beige blouse and trousers with pressed creases. She needed to look businesslike. They probably wouldn't be able to help her, but she had to try. She had already confirmed that Spears was the only private detective agency within 50 miles. She was about to put her cell phone in her purse, but hesitated. Better not, just in case. As she drove into town, her thoughts wandered to sex, as they always did when she was alone. Glenn was a good man, rich, handsome, and a fairly good lover, but he was a little uptight and proper. Sometimes she wanted him to just take her or do something unusual, even disgusting. Despite the difficulties, she was definitely looking for someone on the side, frankly, someone a little rough around the edges. But she had to be careful, as Glenn was extremely jealous. She couldn't be absolutely sure, but she had a feeling he was watching her. She assumed that he could at least track her car and possibly her phone. Such technology was part of his job. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't give you that information." "But I'm not asking you to spy on anyone. I just need to know if someone is spying on me. I'm willing to pay." "That's exactly what we can't tell you. If you want us to spy on someone, as you put it, we'd be happy to take your money." She looked at the two men. The older one, obviously the boss, was in his 40s. He didn't look particularly surly, but she decided that impression was due to her watching too many movies. The younger one was in his late 20s or early 30s, very handsome. "All right," she said, standing up. "Sorry we couldn't help you." "I'll walk you out," said the young man. At the door, he muttered, "Starbucks, 30 minutes." She had just started drinking her latte when he walked in. "Hello, Mrs. Marsden, I'm Des." They shook hands. "We need to move quickly. Let's get started and call me Natalie. I don't work on weekends. Is there a time when your husband isn't home?" "Yes, he plays golf every Saturday morning." "I could come over and check if there's any surveillance. We have a device that detects everything, your house and your car. But I'll have to bring it from Spears, so I'll have to charge you a small fee." "Great. Do you know Beach 3 Lane?" "Yes. Our house is the last one on the left. It's quite far out and in a fairly secluded area, but we have a door camera for security, so it will be difficult to get close. He always checks it when he comes back, and the camera covers the entire driveway. He'll ask me who called. Maybe I'll take my car and follow you until we get to your house. Then I'll leave it on the road, get in your car, and stay low until we get there." "That'll work. We have an attached garage." "Is there any chance there are surveillance cameras there?" "I don't think so." "Do you have a device that recognizes your car's license plate and automatically opens the garage door?" "No, Glenn was looking into that, but for now we have a remote control in each car." "Then it's all good," said Des. "Okay, I'll make it up to you." Natalie arrived at the mall early Saturday morning and made a few unnecessary purchases. They met up, and the plan worked better than expected. When the overhead door rose, Des spoke from under the blanket in the back seat. "Stop halfway, right under the door." They did as he said. The door tried to close several times, sensed the obstruction, and refused. The garage was next to the front door, so Des slipped around to the other side of the house, and Natalie let him in through the back door. She was in luck. Glenn's BMW was in the garage. He and his friend take turns driving so one of them can drink after the game. Today's probably Jeff's turn. You know what the 19th hole is? I thought there were only 18, but he always talks about it. He means the bar at the golf club. Des's device quickly detected a forward-facing camera in the BMW, as well as GPS trackers in both cars. "If he's following you, there's probably a locator on your phone, too. Good thing I didn't take it with me to your office." Then he made sure the door camera was a standard model. Then he went through the entire house, checking every room. They ended up in the master bedroom. "Absolutely nothing," he said. "I guarantee it. So if we both get naked right now, my husband will never know." "Right. He won't guess." "Prove it," she said, and quickly undressed. They stood facing each other. Natalie sat on the edge of the bed. "He'll only find out if you tell him?" They made passionate love. "Under the circumstances, the use of the detector will be free of charge." "I think so too, you insolent bastard. But if I can get another session like this, I'll give you some useful information before I leave." "Agreed. I want more." "Imagine you asked a private investigator like me to keep an eye on your husband. Well, if he was already our client, we would turn down the job and recommend another agent." Natalie, not the quickest on the uptake, thought for a moment. Then it dawned on her. "Oh, you would take my case? I want you to follow my husband." "Of course, ma'am. Come to our office next week and we'll arrange everything." She breathed a sigh of relief. Glenn only checked the locators on the cars and her phone. Des left through the other side of the house. It was easy to walk through the bushes and jump over the fence onto the driveway. On his way back to town, he turned on the classical radio and smiled as he sang along to "When Will I See You Again?" That weekend, Natalie was in high spirits, but she made sure Glenn got his usual dose of sex. There was no need to give him any hints. If he was tracking her car and phone, she couldn't drive into town all the time. So, as agreed, she waited until Wednesday before meeting Des at Starbucks. She knew she couldn't risk bringing him home so soon. It would be too risky. But there had to be a place nearby where they could park and have sex in the backyard. "Bad news," he said. "The boss found out I borrowed the detector. He figured out right away who I helped. After all, it's his specialty. I have to stop seeing you or I'll lose my job." It was late morning. A week had passed, and Natalie was driving Glenn's BMW. She should have been in her Ford Focus, but her insurance had expired again. Glenn called her absent-minded, and he was probably right. She had received a reminder. But secretly, she loved the BMW. It looked like a regular X5, but Glenn was very concerned about security, as he sometimes carried classified documents. She thought it was paranoia, but he insisted that industrial spies were everywhere. The car had special locks that he had designed himself. It also had shatterproof windows. He always boasted that the Prime Minister should have one just like it. No one could penetrate Glenn's pride and joy. Natalie didn't care about any of that. The car was comfortable, and she liked the color. She dreamed of Dee's and wondered if there was any way they could be together again. She was jolted out of her thoughts by a terrible accident ahead. 2 cars had collided on her side of the road. There was chaos all around, and at the other end of the road stood an ambulance with its doors open. Now the flashing lights of a police car were rapidly approaching her. She wasn't sure whether she should pull over to the side of the road. The approaching truck was far enough away, so she stepped on the gas. The BMW lurched forward and pushed her back into her seat. She swerved sharply to avoid the 3 cars and felt a bump. The police siren wailed briefly as the car pulled up, and the oncoming truck flashed its headlights irritably. Then she was safe. But it turned out that it wasn't free, and she wasn't completely safe. She felt an alarming vibration. A large garage appeared ahead, and she turned into it. Before getting out of the car, Natalie checked her makeup in the mirror and unbuttoned the top button of her dress. The girl at the reception desk didn't notice, but the guy who came over to look at the BMW did. They went outside. "Look," he said, "you have a flat tire." She frowned. "The front wheel on the driver's side." He pointed to the wheel and turned back to look at her cleavage. It was far from flat. "Oh no, can you fix it?" He crouched down by the wheel, and Natalie stood next to him. It was a very hot day, and her dress was short. She moved as close as she could. A light breeze blew it up when he looked at her. Okay. She didn't want to stand there all day. This might motivate him to help her. "Something's stuck there." His smile reached his ears. "Really?" "Yes. Look." She couldn't pass up such an opportunity and crouched down next to him, spreading her knees apart. "It's a piece of metal. Looks like part of a radiator grill." "Oh, I must have picked it up when I drove past the accident." "Was that the loud bang we heard?" Yes, not far from here on the A3. He glanced between Natalie's thighs one last time as she swayed. Then he stood up and held out his hand to help her up. She smiled and curtsied slightly. "Oh, I got your hand dirty." He pulled his t-shirt out of his jeans and wiped the oil stain off her palm. "I'm sorry, I think I just made it worse. I'll show you where the restroom is so you can wash your hands properly." "Where have I heard that before?" They laughed. Of course, she didn't know how to change a tire, and the damaged tire was beyond repair. Natalie washed her hands and was offered coffee and a place to sit while he put on the new tire. But she took her drink with her into the workshop and watched him. The temperature was approaching the maximum, and his t-shirt was wet under his armpits and on his back. Every movement of his muscles intensified her excitement. He finished too quickly, and she paid the clerk with her gold card. When she stepped outside, she saw him sitting in the open doorway of the shop. She walked over to him and asked if she could give him a tip. He was sitting in the shade, trying to catch a breeze. "No, but it'll come in handy." He pointed to his sandwiches. "I can't afford a proper lunch. I only work part-time here." "What's in your sandwiches?" "Cheese and cucumbers." "Why don't you get in the BMW with me? It's air-conditioned. We'll be more comfortable while I find my purse. My mouth is watering. Can I have a bite?" He jumped up and they got into the car. She drove away from the building and parked in the shade. In the end, she didn't touch his sandwiches. They immediately proceeded to lovemaking. When she got home, she told Glenn about the accident so he wouldn't ask any questions about the credit card charges, but she didn't mention the mechanic. A week later, Natalie felt more aroused than ever. His name was Carter, he was 18, and he was only here for the summer. He was leaving for college in September. She had Carter's number, but she couldn't figure out how to see him again. He didn't even have a car. "I have to go away for a week," Glenn announced. "There's a big trade show in Tokyo." "Why Japan?" "Because I work for an electronics company, Natalie. I have to keep up with the latest developments, and all the new technology will be on display in Japan." "Oh, I see. When are you leaving?" "I'm leaving Wednesday morning and will be back Monday evening or Tuesday, depending on which flight I get. And I don't want you wandering around town every day. You have to stay here." "That's ridiculous. I'm not going to sit at home all week. I'll feel like I'm in prison." Glenn put down his coffee and looked at her threateningly. "You've been out too much lately. You can go to the store once. We have everything we need, so even that's not necessary. And you can go to the golf club for one evening to socialize, but no more than that." "Why are you being so cruel?" "I don't trust you, Natalie. I saw you flirting with the young man who came to clean the pool. I asked the company to send someone older next time, or a woman, if they have female cleaners. I just poured him a glass of lemonade. That's not flirting. That may be all you gave him, but you weren't wearing a bra and you talked to him for 6 minutes. 6 minutes. He timed it. I always go without a bra in the summer. We live so far from town and no one can see us. So you fired him just because I talked to him? I'm just being careful. I know what you're like. But I'm allowed to go to your stuffy old golf club when you're not there. I'm one of the founders of that club and everyone knows me. You mean they know what a cruel bastard you are and they're afraid of you? You'd tear any man who came near me to pieces, but not just his face. They'll tell me if you go there again. Glenn continued. And they'll keep an eye out for new members who don't know who I am and make indecent proposals to you. You're paranoid. What am I supposed to do all week? You can clean out all the food cupboards, they're sticky, and the 2 lawns need mowing, the front one first. I thought we paid someone to do that. We do. But I caught him watching you sunbathe topless when he was here last time. It was an accident. He finished the back lawn when I went out. I didn't know he'd come back for his shirt. I'm not so sure. Anyway, last week I told him not to come for 2 weeks, just in case, so you can do it. Natalie sighed to herself. She had been trying to seduce Jason, the lawn mower. She especially enjoyed it when he looked at her breasts. The problem was that Glenn didn't work on a schedule and watched her like a hawk. Jason was as afraid of him as everyone else. She smiled, remembering how she had secretly sinned with him last month. Nevertheless, Glenn's absence for almost a week should give her and Carter an opportunity. She needed the Ford so far from town, so she had better make the most of her only trip. If only she had thought to buy a pay-as-you-go phone. Not only could he track her regular phone, but he also had a habit of calling her at all hours of the day and night to check on her. But there was a way around that. Carter was just killing time this summer. She only needed to get him here once, and he could stay. Her adventure with Dez had shown her exactly how to do it. Carter worked part-time, and she could pay him for a few lost hours if it came to that. She had a secret stash of cash. The garage at the end of the street was also a gas station, so Glenn wouldn't suspect anything if she stopped to fill up. He was busy all weekend getting ready for the trip, so by Sunday night she was ready for anything, including sex. But he was exhausted and fell asleep without even letting her touch him. On Monday night, he said it was too hot for love, and on Tuesday afternoon, he mentioned that he had to get up very early on Wednesday. The next thing she remembered was him going into the guest bedroom. "So I won't disturb you when I wake up. But I want you to disturb me." After the usual, "I've landed safely and I'm at the hotel" messages, Natalie's phone went quiet for a while. The BMW was in the garage. Glenn always took a taxi to and from the airport. He had a tendency to drink on long flights. She knew what to expect and put on a t-shirt and jeans. This time she even wore a bra. She pulled out the lawnmower and mowed half of the front lawn, then stopped. As expected, Glenn called her on video chat. She proudly held up her phone to take a selfie and show him how the mowing was going. "I'll mow the back lawn tomorrow," she said. "Well, show me Tokyo." He took a selfie, too, and she could see the Japanese skyline behind him through the window. "It looks fantastic." "It's damn hot here, I can tell you that," he replied. "I'm sure it's even hotter there. According to the morning forecast, it's the hottest summer since 2016. "Okay." After exchanging weather updates, they hung up. Okay. He really did leave the country. Natalie waited until Thursday morning before taking the BMW to the gas station, even though it hardly needed any fuel. Both lawns had been mowed. According to the forecast, it was supposed to be the hottest day of the year. She was braless again and wearing a white pleated skirt. When she went in to pay for the gas, she left her cell phone in the car. At the cash register, she casually asked the guy if Carter was there today. "No, I don't know when his next shift is. He doesn't work every day." He looked at her breasts. It was okay. He had to do it. "Can I use your phone? I need to ask him if he can mow the lawn. I'll pay for the call." "Sure. But could you move your BMW away from the pump first?" She reparked and returned to the gas station. "Hi, Carter. Could you come out to the house and finish the job you started?" "Are you calling from the garage?" "Yes." "Is your old man there?" "No, it's fine. I'll pick you up at the mall." "Did he leave?" The salesman was now talking to another customer. "Yes, he's gone until next week," she replied quietly. "Meet me at Starbucks in an hour. Pack a few days' worth of clothes if you can for Sunday night, if you can hold out, and don't plan on going out much." "I'll be there." So far, so good. If Glenn could still track her from Japan, then the phone and car had simply stopped to get gas. Now they were driving to the mall, their only allowed trip. Okay, he was an electronics expert and had always suspected her. But now she was sure there were no cameras on the premises except for the ones at the front door. If Dez's car missed anything, he would find out she was sleeping with him in his marital bed, and he would have killed her, and him by now, instead of flying halfway across the world and leaving her to fend for herself. And whatever he could see from a distance, he couldn't know that her tire repairman was about to move on to something more. Natalie popped into a lingerie store and bought 2 pairs of stockings with suspenders. Carter might appreciate the variety, and Glenn might like them later. Leaving her cell phone in her purse, she went to Starbucks, another latte date. Carter was already waiting. Well, he was waiting for this as much as she was. "I threw some clothes in my bag," he said. "I also brought 6 cans of beer." "Okay, but you probably won't need the clothes." "Will I get everything?" "Everything and more. He's in Japan and won't be back until early next week." "Great, but I need to take a shower before we get down to business. Before you called, I helped a friend move a dresser upstairs. I'm covered in sweat and I smell bad." "No way, young man. No shower until I get at least 3 orgasms." "Wow, I won't argue with that. I'm still sweating. I should have gotten iced coffee." "It's the hottest day of the year. What's a girl to do?" "Can we go already?" he asked. "Yes, we can. But I want you to press yourself against the back of the seat the whole way. Don't sit down until we're right in the garage." "I have to stay crouched down the whole way?" "Yes, many people recognize my husband's car on Beach 3 Lane, and when we arrive, the camera at the entrance to the house will record the car pulling into the garage." They pulled up to the double doors, and she pressed the remote. The doors opened, and she drove inside. The fun was about to begin. Carter climbed into the front seat while the car was still moving. When it stopped, he kissed her roughly and lifted her shirt. Natalie agreed that this wasn't the usual sequence of events, took off her shirt, and threw it on the back seat. She knew it was ridiculous. They should have gone inside. But the BMW's air conditioning was still running. She turned off the engine, and there was an ominous click, the unmistakable sound of doors locking. "What was that?" Carter asked. "Looks like the doors are locked." "Why did you lock them?" "I didn't lock them." Natalie tried to start the car, but the engine wouldn't turn over. The air conditioning wasn't working, the horn wasn't honking. She couldn't even open the garage door, not that there were any passers-by. "Glenn," she said. "Oh, shit." The temperature began to rise. Glenn stopped fiddling with his phone and put it back in his pocket. He turned his attention to the seminar. It was in English, and Glenn was learning a lot. The news on his laptop reported that the hottest day of the year in England would be followed by an even hotter one. Over the next few days, he explored the exhibition, but didn't worry about video calls anymore. They weren't necessary now. But he sent Natalie a couple of messages every day. That was necessary. He never got a reply. The following Monday, he decided to stay for one more night. There were discounts at the bar, so he wanted to make the most of his trip. Every day, he expanded his circle of acquaintances. Besides, nothing interesting was happening in England except the heat. In his room, Glenn checked his phone one last time to make sure everything was okay. He glanced at the movies again. The Private Investigator was a surprise. Natalie wasn't as stupid as he thought. He had found the camera pointed at him, which had filmed him, but he hadn't noticed the camera next to her. It was pointed at the BMW's interior. Natalie had probably asked him to check the house so he wouldn't know how long she'd been there. If she'd paid him with her legs, so be it. Glenn didn't care when or how he left. The sex in the garage was the deciding factor, and she probably used the same trick to lure the guy into the garage. Natalie must have promised him everything, judging by the huge bag he brought with him. He sent her a final message from Japan, although she wouldn't read it. "I'm going to bed. Are you okay? I haven't heard from you in a couple of days. See you tomorrow night." He flew back on Tuesday morning. His plane landed at Heathrow at 4:30 p.m. He considered having dinner at the airport. But no, he had to worry about losing contact with his wife. He tried calling several times, then took a taxi. It was almost dark when he was dropped off at his house. He would have been surprised if he had smelled anything when he entered the garage. But of course, there was nothing, even when he opened the doors of his BMW. He had to use his phone to disable the car's locking system. Their dried-up bodies began to shrink, and their wrinkles reminded him of mummies. They were both fully clothed. They were more comfortable in the car seats. Natalie was lying in the back seat, and her lover was in the front. He noticed a bag from a lingerie store. It didn't make sense since she wasn't wearing any lingerie. He left her key in the ignition and used his own to lock the car again. He went back to the house and used the phone, this time to make a call. "Hello, please call the police." Matt was almost 50 years old, 5 feet 10 inches tall, and weighed 180 pounds. He seemed to be in a never-ending battle with his weight and was mostly successful, at least most of the time. His dark hair was turning gray, but he laughed it off, considering it his trademark. He still worked as an engineer, which was very time-consuming. But he loved his job, so he didn't mind working overtime. Fortunately, the children had started their own lives, and Matt had more time for his youthful hobbies, including golf, fishing, and everything related to nature. Finally, he was able to go on long trips with his old friends. As for me, Susan, I was 46 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall with green eyes and shoulder-length wavy hair. Regular workouts at the gym helped me stay in shape, but age was taking its toll, and my figure was becoming more curvaceous. I worked part-time as a teacher and loved reading, going to the theater, watching movies, and doing art. I loved classic movies from the 1950s and preferred vintage fitted skirts, dresses, and jackets. I missed my children terribly when they left home, and there was a huge void in my life. I felt lonely, and this seemed to be exacerbated by the fact that Matt was always busy at work or on another trip. My self-confidence was completely shattered, and I felt very insecure. At first, I was sure it was just a phase that many mothers go through when their children grow up and leave home. We talked about it endlessly, but he didn't seem to notice, and our attempts to spend time together as a couple gave way to his work and hobbies. Considering how much he worked, I was glad he had time for what he enjoyed. I just wanted to be a part of it. Months passed, but nothing changed. On the contrary, things got even worse. I went to see a doctor who diagnosed me with depression. I was terrified and felt like a failure. I tried to talk to Matt, but he seemed to think that pills would fix everything and didn't offer me any support. I also talked to friends and family, especially my best friend Helen, who was very concerned about me. Matthew. Glenn had been my best friend since we played football together as children. After his divorce, he was left with virtually no means of support, and we didn't have any money, so I offered him a temporary place to stay in an old shed attached to our house. Everything worked out very well. We were good friends and did a lot of renovation and construction work on our house together, which helped keep costs down. The kids loved Uncle Glenn, and when they grew up and moved out, he even became our son's mortgage guarantor and lent our daughter money to start her own business. I expressed my concern to Susan that this was our responsibility, but she quickly dismissed it, saying we were lucky to have Glenn's support. She also believed that he loved our children so much because he couldn't have any of his own. At the parties we threw for our neighbors, Glenn was the life of the party. He was outgoing and charming and seemed to naturally take center stage. He joked around a lot with Susan, and they got along very well. To be honest, I was glad he was around. I worked a lot and had many hobbies that I loved. I worked hard, but I felt it was necessary to provide for my family, and I was lucky to enjoy my work, which is not the case for most people. Glenn, who supported Susan during her illness and did more of the things she loved, seemed to bring back some of her old energy. I was more than happy to avoid theaters, galleries, and shopping, and I was glad to see Susan's mood improving. It occurred to me that Glenn was gradually taking on more and more of my responsibilities as a husband, but we were all such close friends that it didn't bother me too much. Nevertheless, I intended to rectify the situation after my next business trip. The following Monday, I had to leave for a week, and I was again grateful to Glenn for staying to look after Susan. It wasn't just a matter of safety. Susan was better when people were around. It helped her emotional state, which had become very unstable in recent years. After the children left home, the situation seemed to get worse. She overanalyzed everything and worried constantly. I tried to support her and be positive, sometimes downplaying things to counterbalance her negativity. When I returned, everything was strange. Glenn seemed to be avoiding me, and Susan was clearly uncomfortable. I asked several times if everything was okay, but each time I received an evasive answer. Her emotions were unstable, and I thought she might be entering another period of depression. Glenn was a real lifesaver for me when Matt was away on business trips. He made me feel secure and helped with the kids until they were grown and out of the house. I have to admit that I enjoyed Glenn's company. He was outgoing and funny, always flirting and paying compliments, unlike Matt, who was more reserved. Matt hated shopping and played golf on Saturdays, but Glenn always offered to keep me company. He encouraged me to try different styles, and to be honest, I felt good, really good. Matt liked it too when I showed him later. I started to feel more confident again. It sounds insignificant, but perhaps it was the biggest change in my life, the way I felt about myself. I think Matt saw that Glenn was a positive influence on me. Maybe that's why he never objected. He was happy that his wife was happier. We often had dinner together. It was easier than Glenn cooking for himself, although cooking would be an exaggeration of his abilities. We often went out to dinner when Matt was away on business, but it was purely friendly. I don't know when the boundaries began to blur, but sometimes Glenn seemed like the same husband as Matt. We spent a lot of time together, as Matt was always busy with work or his hobbies. Could a single touch change a relationship? Glenn looked at my hand, then into my eyes. I felt myself blush and tried to pull my hand away, but I couldn't. Did we move closer to each other, about to kiss? Fortunately, we both came to our senses, and the moment was saved. I pulled my hand away and went back to discussing dinner options. The rest of the evening went relatively normally, but with a slight feeling of awkwardness. I lay in bed thinking about that exchange of glances, remembering the subtle looks Glenn had given me. It seemed to me that he looked at my figure several times, especially my cleavage, but I'm well endowed in that department, and all men tend to do that. I was flattered, especially since Glenn was very handsome and fit. We got along so well that I didn't realize it at the time, but it was almost like a date. I had a lot of time to think about what was missing in my relationship with Matt. Although we were best friends, we had few interests in common, and the sex was good but uninspiring. It seemed like we had been drifting apart for years, and the children were the only thing that kept us together. Glenn asked Matt if I could accompany him to his company's awards ceremony. Matt laughed, saying I'd probably need a new dress for that. Glenn agreed. Yes, you're probably right, but I insist that it's my treat, and I'm willing to endure the agony of choosing a dress for you. It'll only take a couple of weeks, he added sarcastically. Matt joked, if you're lucky, I'll be thinking of you from the golf course. I told them they were both arrogant jerks and that I wasn't going. Glenn picked me up just as Matt was leaving for golf. I dragged him around all the dress shops, marveling at his patience, which was the complete opposite of Matt's. In the end, we went back to the first store we visited, and I couldn't choose between two dresses. I went to try them on. One was a black strapless taffeta dress that flared out from the waist, and the other was a blue satin floor-length dress with a slit up the thigh. Glenn's mouth dropped open when I came out of the dressing room wearing the back one. I liked his reaction, but I picked the blue dress. Well, choose between these two. They're both stunning. The one you're wearing really shows off your figure. I noticed that Glenn had adjusted his clothes and wondered if he was aroused. The salesperson asked me which dress my husband liked better. I looked at Glenn, trying not to laugh at his mistake, and decided to play along. Well, Which one do you like better, dear? Glenn said he liked both, and the saleswoman didn't miss the opportunity to mention that both dresses were on sale and that one was suitable for summer and the other for winter, as it would be warmer with nylon stockings. Glenn smiled and said he liked the idea of nylon stockings, winked at me, and then said we would take both. The saleswoman was delighted, took the blue dress, and asked me to bring the black one when I changed. I didn't notice it at the time, but there was a tear in the curtain of the dressing room. When I took off the dress, I saw Glenn standing in the dressing room looking at me from head to toe. I looked up. "Glenn, what are you doing?" Glenn hesitated, then grabbed me by the hips. "You said I was your husband, right? So I'm just doing what a husband should do. I've always wanted you, and Matt doesn't pay enough attention to you. As his best friend and your second husband, I feel like I have to help him. Listen, Glenn, I'm flattered that you love me, but it was just harmless flirting and Matt is your friend." I saw the pain on his face. "Susan, I'm sorry, I thought, damn it." Feeling guilty for teasing him, I touched his face. "It's okay. I'm really very flattered. I don't want to break you two up or take you away from him. You're right, he's my friend. But I just can't resist you anymore. You're constantly on my mind. I love you, Susan. I've loved you for years. Why did you think I never had anyone else?" I was stunned. I knew I liked him, but love. Now I really felt guilty, and then I realized something else. I cared about him deeply and wanted to respond to the love he had shown me all these years. I looked down and saw that he was excited, and my thoughts were racing. Having such an effect on a man as handsome as Glenn was intoxicating, I heard my voice say. "Well, I think I can help you with that. You're my husband." I started stroking him. "This is your reward for loving me." "Oh my God, Susan, that feels so good." Glenn was breathing heavily and could barely stand. I kissed him on the cheek and wiped myself off before getting dressed. We walked out of the stall arm in arm, and Glenn paid for both dresses. I took his arm, and we left. After that, there was a palpable tension between us, but I kept my distance from Glenn so as not to give in to temptation. Things with Matt weren't going very well, but nothing else happened until Matt went away on a business trip, and when that happened, everything happened very quickly. Glenn was with me when I waved goodbye to Matt, and when his taxi turned the corner, Glenn put his arm around my waist and pulled me toward him. "You're my wife now, and I intend to sleep with you." Glenn spent the rest of the week at my place. We slept in the guest room and had a lot of sex. And that's when the dreaded question came up. What are we going to do when Matt gets back? He asked me to look after you. Maybe deep down he knows there could be something between us. I doubt it. I don't think it even crossed his mind. He's so trusting. He's a good guy, and I still love him. I have to try to take care of him, no matter what happens between us. Of course, he's my best friend. Of course I care about him too. I just pray that after such a long wait, I won't have to leave you. The return. Several weeks had passed since Matt returned from his trip. I tried to act normal, but I was distracted, and Matt noticed. I didn't spend any time alone with Glenn and tried to convince myself that I could fix things with Matt. In the end, I failed and sat down at the kitchen table with Glenn and Matt. I put on my best clothes so that both men could see what they might lose. I looked at the floor. "Matt, I have something to tell you. It's kind of a confession, and you're not going to like it. But I hope you'll listen to me and let me explain everything as best I can." He didn't stop me, and I continued. "I think we've been fighting for a long time, growing apart and not spending time together. I've been feeling bad and very lonely. And to be honest, Glenn has filled that void in my life. Glenn and we've fallen in love." "Wait, you're having an affair?" "We've grown closer lately. Glenn has helped me a lot. Us. I feel healthier. He's become part of our relationship, and I want to take care of both of you. It's not fair to exclude Glenn, considering how close we all are. Are you sleeping with him or not? Don't be so rude, but yes, we've had an intimate relationship. You're a bitch, Glenn intervened. Don't call her that. Susan needed an alternative because you practically ignored her. She should have left you years ago. Be honest with yourself, you didn't give her a real relationship for many years. And who are you? The white knight who came to the rescue. What am I supposed to do? Thank you for sleeping with my wife. I stood up. You both need to calm down. Everything will be fine. How the hell can everything be fine? Are you out of your mind? Nothing really needs to change, Matt. We're all friends. We work well together. We've been doing this for years. The sex just complements my relationship with Glenn. None of us wants to hurt you. We can work through this together. You're talking about sharing? You're not losing anything. You work hard. You have a hobby you love, a wife and a home to come back to. We share a family and spend time together. Glenn will live as he always has, with one small change. Tell me what that is, Susan. You're sleeping with him for fun. I knew you'd focus on that. Come on, Matt, you know me better than that. Over the years, I could have slept with many men, but sex isn't the most important thing to me. The truth is, I love both of you. My outburst of love stopped Matt in his tracks. He looked shaken and left without saying a word. Damn, why did I say that? Glenn hugged me, saying that Matt would calm down and that it was better to be honest. I burst into tears. God, I couldn't have done anything worse to him. You're his best friend. We cheated on him, and I confessed that I love you. What I did to him is a disaster. Matt didn't come back, and a week passed. All my calls and messages were ignored. Before, I would have said that I got most of my support from Glenn, but it was only when Matt wasn't around that I realized that I got most of my support from Matt. He was always there, quiet, calming, positive, stable when my mood was unstable. I thought he was off and away on business, but his absence when I went to bed, woke up, and wanted to snuggle up to him to watch a movie left a huge void. I was desperate and started to fall apart. Glenn couldn't help me. He stayed in the annex, but we weren't close anymore. I was too depressed for that. Finally, Glenn managed to track Matt down at his friend's place, explain that he was worried about my health, and beg him to come back and talk to me. That was enough to get us all back around the kitchen table. This time, Glenn started the conversation. Matt, I'm sorry, this is all my fault. I've loved Susan for years and couldn't hold back any longer. When I confessed, Susan seemed to realize she felt the same way. Well, then it's clear, Matt replied emotionlessly. What do you mean? I mean divorce. And you can happily pick up the pieces of what you pretended to be my friend for years. I saw Glenn slump. I don't want to break you two up. You're such good friends, and losing you will destroy Susan. She's told me many times that she still loves you. I'm really sorry I got close to Susan. I guess I've always been a little in love with her. I can't change that, but please don't leave her. Try to work things out between you. I have to go. I'll go and start moving my things out of the annex. I jumped up. It's true, Matt. I love you so much. Without you, I'm lost. He didn't look convinced. It was the first time he hadn't accepted my statement without question. Despite this and the fact that Matt looked deeply unhappy, he agreed to stay and sleep in the guest room until we figured things out, on the condition that Glenn move out of the annex immediately. I tried to repair my relationship with Matt, but progress was very slow. Weeks passed, and I felt increasingly depressed. I had hurt Matt, and the thought of Glenn being alone without any help only exacerbated my depression. Matt sat me down to talk again. I understand that you have feelings for Glenn. He loved you so much that he tracked me down and left, and I'm not going to sit by and watch you become unhappy again. I was concerned. Are you saying I can see him again? What about us? Matt sighed. This puts us in a very delicate position. I think you were right that we distanced ourselves and took each other for granted. I like my home and my lifestyle, so from a practical standpoint, I'd like to keep that. It wasn't until you left that I realized how much you supported me and how much I need you, Matt. But it's more than just support. I still love you and want to be with you. To be honest, I don't know yet. It scares me. I can't imagine how we can share you. Despite Matt's initial concerns, we did just that. It wasn't perfect. I lost the intimacy with Matt, the thing that was just the two of us, but we gained something else and were able to keep it. I saw Glenn a couple of times a week when Matt was busy, and over time it became completely natural for me, a kind of extended friendship. I never got rid of the guilt, but I tried to give Matt more attention and sex than ever before. Thanks to Matt and Glenn's support, I felt stronger and more confident. I gave up my unfashionable clothes and started dressing more sexily. Matt was able to devote all his time to his work and hobbies, much to Glenn's delight, and I always pampered him when he came home. We promised Matt that we would be careful and that no one would find out about our agreement. I think a little competition developed between the guys. They were trying to outdo each other. Matt definitely raised the bar. We started experimenting more in bed, and as a result felt closer to each other. So technically, I had two husbands, which sounds so decadent and completely ridiculous for someone like me. A simple middle-aged housewife from the suburbs. But it seemed completely natural, and I loved both of my men immensely. I had never been happier. Matt. I thought about our relationship, and Susan was right. We had grown apart, and I had accepted that she loved both me and Glenn. We were in a strange triangle and got along well overall, but I didn't like it. I wasn't happy, but I thought the current situation was the best possible one. I was troubled by thoughts of divorce, of having to start all over again, and the financial consequences. We were at another neighborhood party where Susan spent most of her time with Glenn, who, as usual, was the life of the party. She was dressed provocatively with a low-cut neckline and bare thighs. So much for restraint. I was furious, but I didn't want to make a scene. Then the host, seeing me alone, introduced me to another single neighbor. Diana had divorced her cheating husband and, according to her, was glad to be rid of the problems. She was warm, outgoing, and very attractive. She noticed how I was looking at Susan and asked me about it directly. She was shocked that my wife was behaving that way with another man. I don't know why, but I quickly told her our story, even though we had just met. It made me feel better, although some things were difficult to admit. Diana started asking a lot of questions, making it clear that she wasn't impressed with either Susan or Glenn, saying that they had acted despicably and treacherously, and how they dared to treat you that way. I tried to explain that we had grown apart and that I was worried about her health, but Diana didn't want to hear any of it. In her eyes, they were both traitors, and I liked her harsh assessment. The fact that someone had come to my defense for the first time threw me off balance. I wasn't used to it. I realized that I liked her a lot, and looked at her more closely again. She was perhaps a little plump, but it suited her so well that curvy would be a more appropriate description. Her chestnut hair was pulled back, and curls framed her very pretty face. But it was her deep brown eyes that caught my attention, eyes that were easy to get lost in. It seemed like only a few minutes had passed, but the party was coming to an end, and we had spent the entire night talking to each other. Then I noticed that Susan was looking in our direction and looked unhappy. I told Diane that I had had the best evening in a long time and cautiously asked if we could meet again. She looked at Susan, then turned to me. Well, at the risk of your wife killing me, yes, I've had a wonderful evening and would love to spend some more time with you. And maybe your wife wouldn't mind if I felt the same way. We quickly exchanged numbers before Diane left. I looked up and saw Susan rushing toward me, and Glenn was nowhere to be seen. Who was that girl you were looking at all evening? That was Diane, and she's actually a very nice girl. That girl wouldn't let you go. I'm surprised you noticed and had the courage to say something. I only talked to her because you and Glenn were busy with each other. So much for your promise to be careful. Even the neighbors were too shy to talk to me. Luckily, Diane saved me from total embarrassment. But That's different. That's Glenn. That's not nice, is it, Susan? Over the next few days, everything was quiet between us, although Susan said she would continue going on dates with Glenn. She looked stunning. She paid more attention to me than usual and assured me that she still loved me. After Glenn picked her up, I gathered my courage and went on a date. I felt a real connection and attraction to Diane. On our 5th date, we became intimate. Sex with Diane was amazing. She was like dynamite in bed, full of enthusiasm and energy. Sex with Susan had never been like that. Diane made me feel desired. It was both love and desperation. I wondered if that was why I had lost interest in Susan, because most of the time she just lay there with her eyes closed, barely making a sound. She never talked to me or encouraged me. I couldn't remember a single positive comment or compliment. This was in stark contrast to Diana's support and guidance. Susan was upset that I wasn't home when she returned from her date. She was even less impressed when I arrived at 2 a.m. and immediately started yelling at her, asking where the hell I had been. I saw no reason to lie and told her the truth. She accused me of cheating, unaware of the irony of the situation. What? Like for the last 6 months? This is different. It's just Glenn, and we told you about it. You told me about it after it happened, just like I told you. That doesn't make us equal, but at least it balances things out a little, doesn't it? I stormed up the stairs, and without waiting for her response, ran into the guest room. The next day, we talked more calmly. The bottom line was that if I loved her, I wouldn't continue seeing Diane. Oh, so you'll leave Glenn? If you love me, of course. That knocked the wind out of her, and we sat in silence for a while. Can I ask you, is sex with Glenn better than with me? At first, she refused to answer, but then she admitted that at first it was all new, unusual, and exciting, but over time it had calmed down. Why are you asking? Well, it was different with Diana, and I wanted to know if you felt the same way with him. Different how? Without going into details, she made me feel good. She was enthusiastic, very passionate, and into me. Susan didn't answer. I saw her frown, and I continued. It stopped being like that with us. You weren't very responsive and didn't talk much. I started to doubt myself, to doubt that I was satisfying you. I think that's why I started to pull away, or at least that's one of the reasons. I didn't want you to have sex with me out of a sense of duty. I never wanted you to think that. I thought it was normal, that it was the way many people were. Maybe the time I spent with Glenn changed me. Are you going to see her? We're still married. I still love you, and the fact that you're with her hurts me. I want to see her, I like her, and I think it's fair under the circumstances. Maybe we'd both be better off apart. No, please don't do this. When you left, I missed you so much. I need you. You've always been stronger than us, stronger than Glenn and my best friend. Without you, I was lost. So you can have Glenn, and I can't have anyone. And another thing, that party was humiliating. Why did you do that? I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't realize. I find that hard to believe. You knew what you were doing, and I think you liked it. It must have been very exciting, like everything else, right? 2 men chasing after you and loving you. I continued to see Diana, and our feelings grew stronger. Almost at the same time as my relationship with Susan cooled, we hardly spoke to each other. Everything came to a head when Susan saw us. She ran up to us in the bar and started screaming. "Get your dirty hands off my husband!" This attracted the attention of all the bar patrons, who froze in silence. You lost the right to talk like that when you slept with another man, and his best friend at that. The crowd froze in anticipation. This is between Matt and me, and it has nothing to do with you. Well, considering your husband will be in my bed tonight, I'd say it has something to do with me, wouldn't you? By the way, where's your boyfriend? I got the distinct impression that Diana was enjoying this, and Susan was not. Her neck was red and blotchy. Please, Matt, come home. We'll work it out. I'll leave Glenn. I thought you loved him. Never as much as I love you. Or maybe not as much as you loved yourself, Susan. For the first time, I saw Susan for who she really was. You encouraged Glenn for months, enjoying the attention. We could have broken up, gotten divorced, and acted like decent people, but you wanted it all. And when I found someone to love, you spat out your toy. You're selfish and a liar. Glenn can have you. I'm leaving with Diana. As we were leaving, Diana snuggled up to me. So you have someone you love? Well, it's okay, Matt. I love you too. Epilogue. I married Diana 18 months after a long divorce that Susan fought hard for. Susan and Glenn got married, but it didn't work out. They had money problems, and the only way he could help the kids was to let me give him free room and board. Glenn asked me to talk to Susan because she was depressed, and I reluctantly agreed. I tried to say something to smooth things over, that it was better for both of us to go our separate ways, that she needed to focus on her future with Glenn, etc. She refused and begged me to take her back. I turned to Glenn, shook my head, and left. Glenn followed me 3 weeks later, leaving Susan alone. It seems she couldn't have it all.